Welcome back. I'm Punk Brock, YouTube's premier touring musician slash VTuber slash guinea pig punk rock thing. I don't remember what my intro is. And today I would like to tell you about the tour where I broke down three times. Let me start you off by saying I own my own van. Here it is. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? And I just got it out of the garage. I just had some work done. So, should be working fine, right? Within, I would say, the first week, van won't start. Somebody comes out, establishes that the garage who have repaired it didn't quite fit the starter motor back in properly. And for those of you who don't know, the starter motor, you need that to start the motor. Apparently, they just hadn't put a screw back in, which is insane. It was just like really poorly secured. And all the guy had to do to fix it was basically just secure it in. But he didn't have a replacement screw. So he quite kindly told me, hey, you need to take this to a garage and get the screw fixed. And I replied, well, I'm driving this many miles. You think it'll be okay? And he said, yes. And look, it's not his fault, but foreshadowing. Anyway, cut forward a couple of weeks and we are in Austria. In Europe. Look it up on a map if you don't know where it is. I notice that there's a bit of a leak coming from underneath the van, and it looks like it's the coolant. So I stop and I buy some coolant. I fill it up. I know it's full up. And then by the next time I stop, I check the coolant, and it is completely empty. So there's a leak. I ring my breakdown cover, and I'm like, hey, yeah, this is what the vibe is. Maybe you could send someone out to look at it, and hopefully it can be an on-the-spot repair. And otherwise, we can take it to a garage tomorrow. The guy comes out and looks at it, and he's like, yeah, leak. You need to go to a garage. And I'm like, okay, cool. I want to say it's a Wednesday. The next day would be a Thursday. And I'm informed then by the telephone operator that the next day, the Thursday in Austria, is a public holiday. So nothing will be open. I cannot take it to a garage. We have to drive to Milan. Look that up on a map. It's pretty far. And I'm in a bit of a stress, but I have this crazy idea because look at it again. We're looking at a map a lot today, okay? Look at a map of Europe. Where I am near Vienna, Austria, is quite near to the Hungarian border because that's where we were the day before. And so my idea is, hey, could you sort it so I can take it to a garage in Hungary? Maybe that they don't have a public holiday there. And I'm right. So she's like, yeah, I guess you can. It's an hour's drive. So I'm like, okay. The guy told me that it'll probably be okay to drive for an hour as long as I stop regularly and fill the coolant up. And so I do that. I get up super early. She's booked it in with a specific garage. This garage knows I'm arriving. And so I arrive super early at this garage. They don't speak a word of English. Why would they? I have Google. I have Google. Google Translate has done wonders for my career. I kind of type in and I'm like, hey, you guys are looking at my van. And she says to me, diesel? And I'm like, yeah, it's a diesel vehicle. And she's like, oh, no diesel. Our garage does not deal with diesel vehicles. So I'm like, huh. So I ring back my breakdown and I'm like, hey, I brought it to this garage you told me to bring it to. And they told me they won't look at it. They can't look at it. The person on the phone is a bit confused and they're like, huh, well, let me speak to them again. And so they speak to them again and then they're like, yeah, no, they're expecting you, take it back. So an important point here is that the operator from the breakdown company has told me that the workshop manager will look at it personally. Okay? So I go in and I speak to this lady again. And I'm like, hey, so I've been told to come back. And she's like, oh, no diesel. And I'm like, oh, well, a manager? And I think this is where the communication breakdown begins. Because she's kind of like, oh, okay. She goes back and she gets this very, very stern man out of the back. And he comes back and he basically squares up to me. He wants to his body language and his demeanor is very much like, what the do you want? Why are you bothering my employees? And I'm just like, hey, and I hold my hand out to shake his hand. And he kind of brusquely shakes my hand. And I'm just using Google Translate. And I'm like, hey, I've been told to speak to you. You can repair this. And he's just not giving me anything. He's just clearly and I implicate at this point that what I have essentially done is I have asked to speak to the manager. I have become Karen. He takes a few minutes and I just go and sit out the van. And I'm just like, what the is going on? What am I doing with my life? And eventually he comes out and he knocks on my window and his demeanor has changed a bit and he has his own phone now and he's using Google Translate. And so he's now okay, I have somebody who can fix your van. They will be here soon and then you will need to wait 20 minutes and you will go to their workshop. So I'm like, oh, whatever. Whatever. As long as you're not going to punch me in the face, that's great. This other guy turns up in his little car and he hangs out for a bit. And then I'm told to follow this guy in his car. Okay. So this guy drives off and I start following him. I start to go down like narrower and narrower roads. It gets like more and more off the beaten path. Halfway there, I'm just like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? Is this how I die? And I pull into this like tiny village, and he signals to pull into basically what is literally his house. So he wants me to pull into like his locked backyard, which has like a gate behind it. And so whatever. What the fuck else am I supposed to do at this point? I follow him. I pull in. He locks me in to his backyard, and I'll try and show a picture. He has these two huge, like adorable but like filthy dogs, and they're super cute. I back it into his like tiny garage, and he starts looking at it. He has like a whole dog in the floor so he can look underneath the van. It's pretty cool, honestly. He was a cool guy. He turned out he was a cool guy. He didn't kill me. So he's in there for like an hour, and I'm just standing outside, and it's freezing. It's like early December in Hungary, which is like Eastern Europe. It's pretty cold. He comes out and he's holding something, and he just looks at it and he says, "Kaput." And I'm like, oh, what? It's an oil filter. And he's like, yeah, I need to replace this, but I can't do it until tomorrow. I have to order the part. Can't do it until tomorrow. And he like takes me into his house and shows me on his computer. And he's like, this is the part. This is how much it's going to cost. Can't do it till tomorrow. He also gets his like young, I want to say like 12-year-old daughter to help with the translation. Because he's clearly like, oh, you speak like 5 words of English. Come and help. And she's like, oh, you stay in the guest house. And my implication of that was like, I would be staying at his house. And I am so socially uncomfortable. And this makes me like, it's clearly like in one ear, it's like, oh, this is a really nice gesture. But also like, I can't, I don't want to do that. I would rather just go find a hotel. But no, it turns out by the guest house, they mean like a hotel, like a bed and breakfast. This absolute legend of a sweetheart, like drives me in his car, like I want to say a couple of miles down the road to this tiny little guest house. He like sorts it all out for me. He's like, yep, he wants to stay. They give me a room. I eat some food. And that's where I spend the night. I don't have his phone number. His words are just like, I will come and get you tomorrow when the van is fixed. So I'm just like, I'm in this weird like liminal space of like having no contact with this guy and just being like in this cutie little guest house waiting for him to come back. So it gets to like midday the day after, and which is when he's kind of said that he'll be there, and he's not there. And I'm just sat downstairs like eating lunch, just like, oh my God, I really hope he turns up because I don't know where he is. And I hope this isn't a scam. But then eventually another guy turns up and he picks me up. He speaks a bit of English and he's super enthusiastic to speak to me. He's just like, oh, musician? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, metal, punk? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And he's like, Rammstein? And I'm like, yeah, baby. It's fun. He's really nice. And he adds me on Facebook. And occasionally, even to this day, he'll still message me. If you need anybody in Hungary to come and fix your van, like, I'm your fucking guy. And I'm like, yeah. I get back, the van is fixed. And I drive like 12 hours to Milan on that same day. I'm an idiot. And this isn't even the end of the story, because cut forward to like another week and I'm in France and I'm about to drive to Spain, another really long drive. You remember how I started this story by saying there was an issue with the starter motor that I did not address? So we park up at this hotel and the van won't start again. I'm just being like, nah, this is fine. Like, he fixed it last time. It's fine. The French breakdown guy who turns up is like way less helpful. And it's just like, nah, this needs to go to a garage. And we're just like, I've got to drive to Spain like right now. Can't you just like fix it? And so eventually he's like, okay, yeah. I can do the same thing the other guy did. I can fix it in place. And so he does, and the van starts. We drive 10 minutes down the road to a McDonald's, and it stops again. It's come loose. Luckily, the tour wasn't affected. Just my life and my sanity was. And I wait in this McDonald's I am not exaggerating, I wait in this McDonald's for like 24 hours, waiting for somebody to come and take me to a garage just to replace this soup. They just need to fit a screw. That's it. That's all they need to do is fit a screw. And this is on me. All right, this is on me. I'm not trying to blame anyone else. I should have got it fixed. It's my fault. I'm an idiot. I am my own Torah story. But yeah, I sit there for 24 hours in this McDonald's car park. French garages, they'll just have like super long lunch breaks. So it's like, oh, you didn't ring us by like 11 a.m. So now they're on their lunch until 4 p.m. And then they close at 5 p.m. They eventually have to put me in a hotel, come back the next day. Then eventually it's fixed. It's fixed in like 10 minutes. It costs nothing. It's very frustrating. But then I drive home. I get to go home a couple of days early, which at least is nice. The moral of this story is if somebody tells you there's something specifically wrong with your van, it's a very easy fix and you should just go and sort it. Maybe you should just go and sort it. All right, bye.